What do they learn from the Trey Lance experience? Assuming that they can overcome it and get better from it, what did they learn? Where did this go wrong in their eyes or in our eyes?
What did they learn? I think first and foremost, they learned that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch probably shouldn't be the people responsible for bringing in the quarterback, right? They're the ones responsible for evaluating, handpicking Trey Lance. The guys that found Brock Purdy, Slowick, Greasy, those are the guys that you should probably be leaning on when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. So hopefully Brock Purdy's the answer, and they don't have to worry about this for a long time. But if it becomes a situation in the future, you definitely don't want Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch picking your quarterback. You want to rely on your scout department, your quarterback coach, Greasy, Slowick, guys like that to bring it in. That's one thing you can we definitely have learned from this experience, amongst other things.
I think they also learned the importance of reps for a quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't think they really understood how inexperienced Trey Lance is and how the fact that he only had 300 something throws in college, like their plan for him was to sit him. Like that's ridiculous in hindsight. You draft the most inexperienced quarterback ever and your plan is to not play him. Just saying it out loud never made sense. It always sounded ridiculous. And they stand by it. They're like, well, we didn't want to throw him in the fire. Then you shouldn't have drafted him because you needed to. He needed it. I was looking at a stat. DTR and Trey Lance were in the same recruiting class coming out of high school. DTR has thrown like 1,500 passes since then, and Trey Lance is stuck at like 420, including the NFL, including preseason. So the Niners really botched that. If this guy had any chance, he needed to be playing year one. But they didn't do that. They wasted that year.
And I think they also need to learn, just stay where you're at in the draft, because most of the time, I think with the 49ers, they've had one successful try at that, which was Brandon Ayuk, I believe. Outside of that, every time they move up in the draft, it's been hasn't worked out. So I think they need to sit back and just let things come to them and just draft the best player available or for position, whatever. But don't trust yourself enough to spend 3 first-round draft picks to move up for anybody. Just kick back and see. I mean, their success rate is higher when they move down. Like they shouldn't be moving up in the draft to get anybody.
I mean, if you're trading up for like a no doubt about it player, that's one thing. But you're probably not trading up for a no doubt about it player. You traded up to number 3 for a guy who played one season in 1AA, whatever it was. Yeah. So don't do that. And also, like, if all you're really looking for is a game manager, they call him a point guard, whatever you want to call him, who's as cheap as possible, who can run your system, you probably shouldn't be drafting a quarterback in round 1 anyway. That's not a round 1 skill set. You're looking for a day 3 salary. You should be looking for the Brock Purdy's of the world. You should have drafted Dorian Thompson-Robinson this year. He went in round 5. Like, those are the guys you should be, the highly experienced dudes on day 3 who can run your system. That's what you should be looking for. You never, you're a win now team, right? You need experienced young players who are cheap. That's what you need.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, they went from thinking that Jimmy Garoppolo was not enough to coming back to that philosophy. Basically, that's what you're doing when you're coming back to Brock Purdy. You're like, okay, we need more than a game manager. We got beat by Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. We want that. And then they tried to get that, and then they found Brock, and they're like, no, but we're gonna go back to the game manager role.
We can't actually develop that skill set. So let's just go back to the skill set that we know and get it for cheaper and say, just kidding. We're gonna make the rest of our team better. But what's crazy about that is this team could be a lot better than it is right now if they had just never done the Trey Lance deal.
Oh, yeah.
If they had figured out this formula 3 years ago and said, we just need cheap Jimmy, man, you could have had Micah Parsons. You could have had all these other players to add to this team. But right now, you have cheap Jimmy and like 8 or 9 vets who are really good and a team that's very thin. Yeah. Shouldn't be this thin. Yeah. But it's thin because you threw away 3 firsts and a third.
Right. And they could have been investing in offensive linemen.
Yeah.
With those picks, right? 3 firsts. That's when you find a good offensive lineman. You could have got a right tackle. You could have got Trent Williams replacement or a center or somebody. You could have been investing in a lot of things. It was a bad, like, no matter how you slice it, whether you think it's because Trey Lance is a bust, if that's what you think, so be it, right? If you guys think Trey Lance
is a bust for the Niners, I mean, they didn't get anything out of this. They got nothing out of this.
Right. Yeah. Either way, regardless of what you think about Trey Lance and his future, this was a horrible, horrible decision by the 49ers to go after Trey Lance, and they could have spent these picks in a lot of better places. And the only reason that, most coaches and GMs in this situation wouldn't have their job, but because they've been able to have success, he's still here. We'll see how long that lasts. There's a lot on the line for Kyle Shanahan this year because of all this.
If they wanted Trey Lance to work out, he needed to play year one, and they needed to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. They needed to actually commit to the move, and they never did. When they kept Jimmy Garoppolo around, like, I've never heard of another team saying, okay, like, this quarterback we have isn't good enough. We're moving on. We're going in a different direction. But he's going to stay, and he's going to be the starting quarterback until this guy's ready. Like, okay, you're not really committed to this transition. You're looking for a reason not to make the transition at this point. You got to move on. You got to tell your locker room, this is the direction we're going, because you didn't tell them which direction they were going, and they chose for you. And look where you are now.
And commitment has been a problem for Kyle Shanahan. It's still a problem. If you guys think he's 100% sold on Brock Purdy, I don't care what he's saying. Give Brock Purdy 4 or 5 bad games, and everything's going to change. Or if Brock Purdy gets hurt, I mean, that's the thing that people don't understand is Brock Purdy was hurt, 2-3 times in 7 games, at least twice. The rib, I don't know if the oblique and the rib are 2 different injuries, or if they just called the rib an oblique. But either way, it's at least 2 injuries in 7 games. If that trend continues, then they're back in the situation they were with Jimmy Garoppolo, where they can't keep a quarterback healthy. So even that could break the alliance that they have with Brock Purdy right now. So, I mean, commitment is just not something Kyle Shanahan does.
I think another thing they probably learned from the quarterback, the Trey Lance thing, is just lower expectations, man. Don't ever trade 3 first-round picks for anyone, let alone a guy who's not in the NFL. Like, you were going to give those picks, you would give that trade package for like Aaron Rodgers or,
in his prime.
I don't even know that Dak Prescott's worth it. I don't even know that Kirk Cousins is worth it. Like, you'd give that trade package for top 7, 8 quarterback, Lamar.
Tom Brady in his prime.
Yeah, you gave it for Trey. So like you couldn't play Trey as a rookie, because if he struggled, if they were like, the Bills didn't do that for Josh Allen. Right. They didn't trade 3 first-round picks for Josh Allen. The Chiefs didn't trade 3 first-round picks. You don't do that. You can't raise the expectations on your own player like that, because he'll never live up to those expectations unless he's the best player in the league right away, which he won't be, because you can't develop quarterbacks, and that's rare.
It's almost impossible. But you know what you do? You trade a 4th for Trey Lance. That's what you do. Yeah.
That's doo-doo. Yeah. You trade a 4th, that's genius. What you do is you let some other team trade 3 first-round picks for him, set the bar too high, never give him a chance, run him out of town, and get him on a bargain. Like, that's how you do it.
Right.
That's how the Niners got Steve Young back in the day.
Yeah.
Because the Bucs convinced themselves that Vinny Testaverde was better than him. Okay, cool. We'll take Steve. Give it. You don't know what to do. We'll figure it out. Right over here.
You got to think that in the back of Kyle Shanahan's mind, he's a little concerned about Jerry Jones, the guy who's, he found Troy Aikman, Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, and now he's all in on Trey Lance. Like, he's in on Trey Lance. This isn't over. That's the funny thing about it. People say this, okay, let's move on. And I actually do want to move on to some capacity and just cover the team now. But he's attached to this situation for as long as Trey Lance is in the league. I mean, if Trey Lance fizzles out, then, they were proven right the second time, not the first time, the second time. But if Trey Lance becomes somebody, then Kyle Shanahan is going to look bad.
And like, I don't think that's going to happen this year. It feels like this is for the future for them. But the Trey Lance debacle, the Trey Lance failure for the Niners hangs over this entire season. The fact that it's official, they got nothing from these 3. He was their first-round pick this year. Official, you got nothing from it. You get a 4th-round pick next year. You see that you lack depth. Go win the Super Bowl. And the Niners are acting like they can't, because they have the real deal at quarterback. They have Steve Young as backup. They're set. So hopefully, this is a topic still, because this decision really defines the season.
It defines Kyle Shanahan's tenure with the 49ers. It's a make or break year for Kyle Shanahan. If everything works out and they have the same type of success with Brock Purdy and they go far, NFC Championship game type thing with Brock Purdy this year, then it's great. He's justified in what he's been doing. If Brock
gets injured again after 8 games and Sam Darnold comes in and he's Sam Darnold and this team kind of falls short of expectations, and it's because of the quarterback and Kyle's misevaluation, and then you're thinking like, man, do we really trust this guy to are you going to bring back Brock and Sam again? Or are you going to get a new quarterback? Or are you going to let Kyle pick that guy? What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Jed York, do you really, if Brock doesn't work out, and I really don't believe Sam Darnold is going to, he's going to turn the ball over at a high clip. So I have no belief that Sam Darnold is going to be any different than he's been throughout his career. He'll look better when guys catch the ball, but he's still going to make the decision. I mean, you saw him in the preseason game. He threw 2 interception-worthy plays, one right in the defender's chest. Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold. So if Brock Purdy doesn't work out, and I fully expect Sam Darnold to be Sam Darnold, and we're sitting here next year talking about should we bring Kirk Cousins in, and now the cheap quarterback room doesn't matter all of a sudden. Like Jed, you really think Jed York's going to buy into that at this point? I don't know. I don't see it. So I think it's a make or break year for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch with the 49ers.